Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a long, meandering walk through the kind of story that even Babylonian librarians might have skimmed over when they were trying to stay awake. It's soft, it's slow, and honestly, it's got more dust than drama. We're starting our journey in the ancient Mesopotamian plains, home of cradle of civilization type achievements, and also thousands of sheep. Yes, sheep. Woolly, plodding, and extremely countable sheep. You're going to learn things no one really asked for, like why early Babylonians cared so much about sheep hooves, and how counting them became a high art lost to time, because of course, it did. And by the end of tonight, you'll either be asleep or deeply confused about the socioeconomic structure of Sumerian herding practices. Either way, you probably won't survive this awake. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's always cool to know who else is out there floating half-conscious through history. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take a slow breath as your feet touch the cracked, sun-warmed earth of a plain that has seen more forgotten names than living ones. This is southern Mesopotamia, somewhere between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, a land so flat that the horizon seems to be trying to escape you. Wind slips across the surface like it's bored, dragging with it the dry scent of distant barley fields and something faintly woolly. There's a kind of sleepy heaviness in the air, like time itself got tired of ticking and decided to take a nap. In the distance you see them, scattered dots of cream and gray gently swaying. Sheep. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. You try to count them, but already your mind wanders. Nearby a shepherd slouches against a sandstone slab, head tilted just so as if he's mastered the art of not quite awake. He holds a wooden tally stick in one hand, a tool so ancient that even archaeologists shrug at its origin, and he scratches a new mark every time a sheep bleats, or maybe when the wind shifts. It's hard to tell. You watch him for a moment and can't shake the sense that he's dreaming with his eyes open. The sun hangs above like an old oil lamp with no wick left. You feel it on your skin, not hot, but insistent, like a nap you didn't plan on taking. The sheep don't seem to care. They graze in slow, hypnotic sways, occasionally looking up with expressions that can only be described as vaguely philosophical. A breeze kicks up a puff of dust, and with it comes a memory. Not yours, but the land's, of scribes bending over clay tablets, of priests chanting beside canals, and somewhere someone arguing whether a certain lamb belonged to their uncle or their cousin's wife's sister. These were the kinds of arguments that built cities. You come across a small tablet half buried in the dirt. When you brush it off, you see the faint impression of cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script of old. It reads something like, Day 28, 2 sheep returned, 1 missing, suspect neighbor. Even ancient record-keeping had passive-aggressive notes. You sit for a moment beside the tablet and close your eyes, listening to the rhythm of the herd. It's not chaotic, more like a murmur, like a lullaby whispered by 1,000 soft feet on dry soil. You wonder if this was how the practice started, someone trying to fall asleep, counting sheep not for calculation but consolation. Because let's be honest, no one counts sheep during the day unless they're paid for it. And yet, in Babylon, they counted constantly. Not for sleep, but survival. Sheep were wealth, sheep were sacrifice, sheep were census. You begin to realize that counting them was not merely a pastime. It was sacred. Tedious, yes, but sacred. Overhead, a hawk circles, not hunting, just watching. Like it, too, is vaguely invested in sheep economics. You imagine it writing a dissertation on aerial livestock oversight. The shepherd scratches something into the dirt with his stick, and sighs a sigh so long and low it could be used to sand wood. Then he says, not looking at you, 57 take the lame one. He doesn't explain further. He doesn't have to. You understand this is less about accuracy and more about rhythm. Because it's the rhythm that matters, really. 1 sheep, 2 sheep, skip a beat, sigh, 3 sheep. Your body begins to fall into it too. You're breathing the lines. The dust swirls around your ankles like sleepy ghosts of senses past. You remember reading somewhere, maybe on a museum plaque or the back of a cereal box, that the Babylonian number system was base 60. Not 10, not 100, 60, and you wonder if it had something to do with this. 60 sheep, 60 seconds, 60 minutes, everything ticking forward in ancient increments. It's just the kind of trivia that sticks in your brain like the last bit of a dream you can't quite shake. And somehow, it fits here, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by wool. The sun begins to lean westward, dragging with it the shadows of the herd. One particularly chubby sheep stares at you with a kind of soft defiance, then continues chewing something invisible. You swear it winks. In the distance, a bell chimes, a soft, metallic thud that probably signals evening roundup or dinner or a changing of the shifts in a temple where no one really does anything anymore. You don't feel the need to move. Instead, you lie back against the hard earth, arms crossed behind your head, and watch dust motes drift like lazy meteors across the fading sky. The shepherd hums a tune that may or may not be about turnips. You let your eyes close just for a second. 1 sheep, 2 sheep. The world keeps turning, slowly, sleepily, and always slightly off-key. The shepherd's hum trails off like a thread in the wind, and for a moment all you hear is the soft scuffle of hooves against cracked soil and the gentle rustle of wind over distant reeds. You open your eyes, barely, and everything's dipped in gold now. That soft, late evening kind of gold. The kind that makes everything feel like an old photograph someone fell asleep holding. You stand again. Not because you need to, but because your legs seem to remember they exist. The horizon still hasn't moved. It never does here. But the sheep have, shuffled just a little farther down the plain in an unhurried zigzag that somehow feels deeply philosophical. You follow them without thinking, and no one stops you. The shepherd has already melted into the background like a particularly quiet bush. Ahead, a low fence made of bundled reeds snakes along the edge of a dry canal. Beyond it lies a small encampment, maybe 4 huts, a clay oven, and a stone seat that looks suspiciously like it used to be part of a ziggurat. And there, hunched over a flat slab of slate, is another man. Or maybe he's part of the furniture. Hard to tell at first glance. He's muttering under his breath, tapping a stick in a pattern you don't recognize at first. But then you hear it. 1, 2, 5, 3, 2, 1 again. Your brain twitches. That's not how numbers are supposed to go. You inch closer and he looks up, eyes tired, beard sun-faded, expression somewhere between irritated and deeply bored. He gestures vaguely to the slab. It's covered in sheep. Drawn ones. Sort of. Actually, they look more like clouds with legs, and some of them have very determined eyebrows. This, he grumbles, is accounting. You nod solemnly like someone who understands fiscal theory. He snorts. No, not your kind. Real accounting. Herd-to-hand ledger work. We count, we group, we guess how many will make it to winter. You lean over the slab. The sheep are grouped in clusters, some in circles, others in V-shapes. One set arranged like a badly played game of tic-tac-toe. Next to each group is a series of scratches. Vertical lines, some crossed, some looped. The groups tell us how they sleep, he says, poking at one cluster with the stick. These, loud breathers. These, like to kick. These. He shrugs, existential. You raise an eyebrow. He sighs. Sheep don't all sleep the same. Some fall right over like collapsed tents. Others stare at you for hours like they know your sins. You can't just count them, you gotta know them. You glance around. The sun dips further, casting long shadows. The sheep continue their slow graze. The man turns his attention back to the slab and begins to hum. A different tune than the last shepherd, but still in that same rhythmic lullaby-adjacent range, almost like he's syncing with the patterns on the stone. You sit beside him and let your eyes follow the loops and tallies. This system, he mumbles, it's not numbers, it's memory. That mark, that's for the one with the limp. Curve, that's for the biter. That triangle. He chuckles. That's not even a sheep, that's my cousin pretending to be one. He doesn't elaborate. You begin to notice something odd. The clusters form a rhythm, like a song without sound. One group, then space. 2 groups, space. 1 again. It's not perfect, not symmetrical, but it breathes. You start to understand. It's not about math, it's about feeling. The art of counting sheep in Babylon wasn't a cold calculation. It was like composing, and every sheep had a note, which makes sense really. You wouldn't try to fall asleep by solving equations, but a song, a pattern that you could drift into. The man pauses. You know how many sheep there are, he asks without looking. You shake your head. Neither do I, he says. But I know how many there aren't. I can feel the gaps. That's how you really count. Not with numbers, with absences. It's the kind of thing that would sound poetic if he didn't immediately yawn afterward and scratch his belly with the same stick he uses to tally sheep. You wonder briefly how many sheep it would take to forget the difference between day and night. How long someone would have to sit here, tracing cloud-legged shapes into stone before time gives up and lies down beside them. The answer apparently is about as long as you've been sitting here, because you realize the stars have started to peek through the darkening sky. Somewhere, a reed flute lets out a half-hearted note, either a signal or someone practicing scales badly, possibly both. The man finally stands, joints cracking like ancient floorboards. He stretches his arms, winces, and looks down at you. You're gonna want to find a place to lie down soon, he says. Sheep don't stop just because you blink. And with that cryptic farewell, he limps off toward the huts, leaving you with a slab of sleepy graffiti and a gentle night breeze. You lie back against the warm stone, still radiating the sun's leftover size. The stars above twinkle like curious eyes. 1 sheep, 2 sheep. The rhythm resumes in your head, uninvited but welcome. And just before your eyes close, you wonder, did he ever count them right? Or did he just dream the numbers into place? A question for another evening. Or maybe never. The stone beneath your back holds the ghost of the day's heat, like it hasn't realized the sun left hours ago. You lie still, the stars now brighter, scattered across the velvet sky like ancient glitter. Somewhere nearby, a sheep sneezes. It's alarmingly loud, then gone. You're not even sure it was real. Your eyes drift upward, half focused, half asleep. And that's when you hear it. A soft tapping, rhythmic, like someone slowly drumming their fingers against a wooden bowl. Tap, 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 tap. Then a pause. Then again. It's coming from farther down the plain. You push yourself up and follow the sound, your steps slow, the earth soft beneath your feet. The stars above seem to lean closer, listening with you. The tapping leads you to a strange little clearing marked by 3 tall posts carved with spiral patterns and symbols you don't recognize, or maybe just forgot. In the center sits a boy no older than 12, barefoot, holding a round tablet in his lap. He's got a stick in one hand and a cuneiform stylus in the other, and he's counting, or trying to. You sit quietly nearby, and he barely acknowledges you. He's too focused. He counts aloud, but not confidently. 31, 32, 30. Wait. He wipes a smudge off the tablet with his sleeve and groans. That's the 3rd time I lost track. You clear your throat gently. He looks up, startled, then shrugs like this sort of thing happens all the time. They keep moving, he says, motioning to a nearby pen of very unimpressed sheep. It's like they know. You glance at the pen. The sheep aren't doing anything particularly rebellious. Just standing, breathing, blinking at the stars. One of them is chewing a piece of reed with such intensity you're a little envious of its focus. The boy sighs and scoots over to show you his tablet. It's covered in lines, dots, clusters. Nothing like numbers as you know them. This is our counting system, he explains a little proudly. We use 60, not 10. 60's better. It divides more ways. You nod slowly, trying not to look like someone whose math knowledge caps at splitting the bill. Like, 60 divides by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not just boring stuff like 2 and 10. He pauses, realizing you might not care. Anyway, he says, we count with our fingers. You raise an eyebrow. Not like that. He corrects. We count 3 joints on each finger, 12 per hand, then use the other hand to count how many 12s we've counted. You blink. He demonstrates. 1 finger on the left hand taps the joints of each finger on the right. 1, 2, 3, up to 12. Then he lifts 1 finger on the left. That's 112. He keeps going. This way I can count to 60 with just my hands, he says proudly, wiggling his fingers like a magician who only does arithmetic. You give an impressed nod, even though your brain is quietly malfunctioning. But it makes sense, in a way. Out here, with no calculators, no chalkboards, no spreadsheets, just you, the sheep, and the stars. Counting with your body is the most natural thing in the world. Your hands are your tools, your memory, your math. And besides, he adds, glancing up at the sky, there are 60 minutes in an hour, 60 parts of a circle, it's everywhere. You stare at him, he stares back. Then both of you turn to look at the sheep. One of them has fallen over but seems comfortable with its life choices. you think they know their math? He asks. It's a fair question. You spend the next few minutes in silence, watching him tap and recount. Every now and then he sighs, rubs out a symbol, and mutters things like stupid squishy faces and why do you have 2 left legs? At one point he asks, do you think if you count them wrong, they get offended? You don't answer, mostly because you're afraid the answer is yes. Then suddenly, without fanfare, he yawns, loudly, so loud that the sheep glance over, mildly annoyed. I'm done, he mumbles. Tomorrow I'll just say there were. Enough. He stands, brushes off his tunic, and looks at you. You should try the fingers thing, he says. It works. Until your fingers fall asleep. He disappears into the darkness, leaving you with a tablet full of half-finished sheep math and a new respect for ancient arithmetic. You look down at your hands, try to count your knuckles, and immediately forget where you started. But you smile, because somewhere in the process of counting, your brain begins to soften. The edges blur, the need to know gives way to the comfort of doing. Tap, tap, breathe. You lie back again and trace invisible sheep across the sky. 1 finger, 1 joint, 1 cloud. And sleep begins to count you instead. A low, steady wind stirs through the reeds as the stars above shimmer like they're trying to hum you to sleep. You lie there a little longer, the night folding in around you like a heavy wool blanket, the kind that's scratchy, oddly comforting, and definitely smells faintly of sheep. But then comes a sound, a soft, deliberate squelch, not threatening, just odd, rhythmic, like wet sandals on packed clay. You turn your head and see a man, older, wide-shouldered, and covered in more dried mud than dignity. He's walking in slow loops around a round, shallow pit, dragging a wooden tool behind him that makes a faint scraping noise. It looks sort of like a rake, but with the tired sole of a spoon. You sit up. He glances at you, then points to the pit. Footprint registry, he says, like this is a normal thing to announce to strangers. You peer down at the pit. It's full of sheep tracks, little crescent-shaped marks going in every direction like some woolly crime scene. He gestures again. They pass through here every night. We check the tracks, make sure no new hooves. You blink. You mean you identify sheep by their footprints? Of course, he says. Can't always count heads. Some lie down, some double back, some... He pauses, rubbing the back of his neck. Some just aren't real sheep. Too quiet. You decide not to ask what he means by that. He hands you the rake spoon thing. Go on, smooth it. You step into the edge of the pit, drag the tool in slow, wide circles, erasing the old tracks until the surface is clean. It's oddly satisfying, like combing flour or petting the desert. Tomorrow morning, he explains, we check who came back, compare tracks, size, shape, depth. And that works, you ask. He shrugs. Better than yelling names into the void. You laugh, but he doesn't. This one time, he continues, we got 5 extra tracks, but no extra sheep. Took us a week to figure it out. What was it? Turns out 1 sheep was walking in a very complicated circle. He shakes his head. Still don't trust that one. He crouches down and begins sketching in the dust with his finger. Uruk was first to do this, you know, footprint verification. Not just for sheep, merchants, messengers, temple goats. If it touched ground, someone tracked it. You imagine an entire department of ancient people hunched over dirt trying to determine if a delivery goat forged its footprint. Babylon had bureaucracy long before email made it unbearable. You ever had a sheep impersonator? You ask, joking. He raises an eyebrow. There's a reason we call this the pit of truth. Right, of course. A breeze rolls in, tugging the loose ends of your tunic and carrying the scent of something faintly bitter. Like wet stone and barley left too long in the sun. The man traces another set of overlapping prints, muttering to himself. This one, he says, pointing at a larger mark. That's Old Lady Gray. She drags the left leg, always leaves a comma in the dirt. You squint. He's right. The print does have a kind of swoop, like a footnote from a hoof. And this, he gestures toward a smaller, neater prints. That's the twins. They step exactly the same. It's disturbing. You nod, quietly wondering what it says about you that you're genuinely fascinated by sheep footprint forensics at this point. Or maybe you're just really tired. He takes the tool back, drags it across the pit again in a wide spiral, then smooths the center perfectly flat. Here, he says, watch this. He whistles, a low, warbling tune that sounds vaguely like someone playing a flute through soup. From the dark, a single sheep waddles over. Gray, shaggy, limpy. She steps into the pit, leaves her slow, swoopy tracks, and exits like a supermodel finishing her runway walk. The man nods with quiet satisfaction. Still herself, he says. You watch the trail she leaves behind and feel something almost sacred in its imperfection. A curve, a dip, a quiet insistence on existing. Sometimes, the man murmurs, the best way to count is to stop counting. Let the ground tell you who stayed. He steps back, lets you approach the pit. You kneel beside it, run your fingers gently over the print. The dirt is cool now. The night is full. You feel your breath sink with the rhythm of silent hooves and unseen returns. 1 mark, 2. Sleep doesn't come all at once. It comes like tracks in the dust. Slowly, gently, like someone walking around your dreams without waking you. You sit there for a while longer, watching the earth remember. The night has thickened around you like warm smoke, soft and heavy. Your knees crack slightly as you rise from the edge of the footprint pit. You dust your hands on your robe, though the fine silt clings with the persistence of memory. Behind you, the old man has vanished into the folds of the dark, like he was never there. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was the wind pretending to be someone useful. You wander again. The plain stretches out quiet and wide, the kind of quiet that makes your ears ring faintly with your own thoughts. You pass another row of reed-fenced pens, each one housing its own tiny chaos of dozing sheep. They shift, mutter, occasionally let out a dramatic sigh, like they too have had a long day of being misunderstood. Then you hear it, a low droning voice, steady and ancient, leaking out from the cracked doorway of a squat stone building with no windows and a roof made entirely of stacked mud bricks. You hesitate, then duck inside. The room is lit by a single oil lamp, sputtering with the enthusiasm of a candle in a bathtub. It casts long, soft shadows across the walls, shadows that sway and stretch like they've been waiting for company. In the center sits a man in thick robes, his head shaved, except for a tuft in the back like a forgotten paintbrush. He's hunched over a long clay slab etched with deep grooves, muttering into the silence. You stay quiet. He doesn't look up. Welcome to the records, he says. You didn't introduce yourself. You're late, he adds. But so was I. You step closer. The slab in front of him is a tally ledger. But, unlike the footprint readings or fuzzy sheep doodles, this one is terrifyingly organized. Rows upon rows of parallel lines, angled marks, triangular stamps. It looks less like math and more like a spell. These, he says, dragging a finger down one row, are the sheep who didn't return. Your mouth opens, but he's already anticipating your confusion. They're not dead, he clarifies, just uncounted, lost, or maybe hiding. He shifts a small clay token into your hand. It's warm. Impossibly, it smells faintly like cumin. Every sheep has a record, not just of where they are, but where they should be. This, he says, tapping your token, belonged to a ram who wandered off 27 days ago. We still list him, just in case. You look at the token. A small rectangle, listed with a single vertical slash across it and a faint symbol that might be a horn, or a banana. You're too tired to tell. He returns to his muttering. You lean over to see better, and that's when you realize the grooves in the slab are not just rows. They're paths, winding, intersecting, spiraling like irrigation channels or the lines in a palm. The slab is a map of sheep. These marks, he continues, track not just where they were seen, but who saw them. That dot, the baker. That curl, the boy who sleeps in the hay, that little triangle. He squints. Oh, that's me. I make a triangle when I'm sleepy. He draws another symbol slowly, pressing the stylus into the clay with care. You see, we don't count just with eyes, he says. We count with stories. If a sheep was witnessed, it existed. If no one tells its story, he trails off, it unexists. You blink, trying to wrap your head around the metaphysical thread of a sheep fading from reality due to a lack of gossip. You think that's funny, he says, reading your mind. But when people stop telling stories about the old herds, they vanished. Not died, just vanished. You imagine an entire flock slipping silently out of time, bleeding softly as they disappear like a dream that forgot how to end. He gestures toward a cracked tablet near the wall. See that one? He asks. That's from the Temple of Enki. It lists the sheep by personality. Loud, itchy, nervous, ambitious. You cough. Ambitious. He nods. There was one who tried to learn to open gates. We named him Gatus. He was complicated. You stare at the crumbling tablet. You can't decide if this is bureaucratic madness or the most romantic accounting system ever devised. He adds, the scribes believed that names gave shape. Without a name, a sheep couldn't be recorded. Without recording, it couldn't be remembered. And without memory, it wandered forever. The room suddenly feels colder. You glance at the clay slab again, and in your drowsy state, the paths begin to twist slightly, almost writhing, as though they remember every hoof that's passed over them. You shiver, not from fear, but from a strange sympathy. The man stops writing and folds his hands. We don't just count to know, he says softly. We count to anchor. You don't speak. You can't, not because you're afraid, but because some truths arrive gently and still hit like thunder. You hand back the token, but he closes your fingers around it. No, he says, keep it. Someone needs to remember. You leave the building, blinking against the night. The stars are still watching. The air is thick with stories not told loud enough. You clutch the token and realize you're still counting. But now it's not just sheep, it's every step you've taken, every soft breath, every memory that refused to vanish. The night has thickened into something syrupy, slow-moving. The stars, still dutiful, watch from their high, ancient perches. You walk quietly, the token still warm in your palm. It presses into your skin like an idea that won't leave. The ram who wandered off 27 days ago. Gatus, the ambitious sheep. The ledger, the footprint pit. All of it beginning to swirl together like dream fragments bumping into each other at the edge of sleep. You follow a narrow path lined with woven reed mats, faded and uneven like they've been repurposed more times than they were meant to be used at all. The air smells faintly of clay dust, dried figs, and the quiet desperation of paperwork that's been sitting too long. At the end of the path, you come upon something unexpected. A low open pavilion built entirely of cracked limestone and rope. Inside, seated on flat cushions, are 6 individuals in long robes, all hunched over massive clay tablets. None of them look up when you arrive. You step inside. No one greets you. They're whispering. All of them. In different tones and different speeds. One is muttering syllables so slow they seem to dissolve into the air. Another is whispering urgently like they're reading battle plans to a mouse. Another just hums softly, and the clay in front of her responds like it's embarrassed. You move closer, and that's when you see it. They're arguing silently in whispers about sheep. He claimed 3 more than he brought. But that lamb was born during the eclipse. The hoofprint was too symmetrical. No way that was natural. She only blinks every 3rd hour. Cursed, obviously. You blink slowly. This is a council. A sheep council. Or more accurately, the Committee for Verification of Disputes in Counting and Identity. You're not sure how you know that, but it feels true in your bones. A man finally looks up from his tablet, eyes the color of sleep and sandalwood. He gestures for you to sit, and you do, unsure if you're being initiated or interrogated. He places a clay tablet in front of you. Read this. You squint. It's a complaint. I, Ibisin, dispute the counting of sheep recorded by Turigamil. On the night of the 3rd barley moon, I brought 74 sheep. He claims 68. Where are my 6? The clay tablet includes diagrams, sheep with smug faces, footprint rubbings, a drawing of a gate with a question mark next to it. You look up, confused. The man leans in. Counting is not about how many, he whispers. It's about who counts and who is trusted to count. You glance around, all of them are nodding slowly, like you've just been handed the secret to the universe and they're waiting to see if you'll choke on it. One woman chimes in, her voice like sand slipping down a funnel. We've had wars over numbers, family feuds, sheep impersonations. One time an entire marriage dissolved over a mismarked ewe with a birthmark shaped like a fish. You stifle a yawn, unsure if it's from boredom or the creeping spell of sleep. Possibly both. Another council member, a man whose beard seems to defy gravity, speaks with grave solemnity. There was once a shepherd who inflated his numbers for prestige. Claimed 110. He had 43. The rest were rocks painted white. His punishment, he leans close. We made him count stars, 1 per night. No repeats. Your eyes widen. Did he finish? You ask. They all shake their heads. Fell asleep after the 4th one, says someone. You breathe deeply. The air in here is thick with quiet tension, baked clay, and the unmistakable scent of sheep wool after a rain. Musty, earthy, ancient. The original speaker hands you a stylus. Your turn, he says. Write a number. Any number. one you believe is true. You stare at the clay. The stylus hovers. You think of the token in your hand. The ram. Gatus. Ambitious. Lost. You press the stylus gently and etch. 1. There's a pause. Then they all exhale. A long, approving breath that seems to stretch the walls a little wider, like you've passed something invisible. Better to count one you know, one says, than claim 1,000 that never stood beside you. They return to their murmuring, and the room sways slightly, not because it's moving, but because your head is. Your body. Sleep is knocking, not at the door, but somewhere deep in your chest, like a soft hoof against your ribs. You leave the pavilion and step into the cool breath of night. The wind brushes past you like a shawl placed gently on your shoulders. Somewhere in the distance, a sheep sneezes again, and for the first time you wonder if maybe it's on purpose. The air out here is cooler now, almost damp with quiet. You rub your arms, not from the cold exactly, but from the strange feeling that maybe time has taken a step sideways. You've just left a tribunal where clay tablets argue more passionately than most politicians, and now the plain stretches in front of you again, dark, endless and soft around the edges, like the world itself is dozing off. You walk without direction. Your feet find the path before your mind does. Somewhere nearby, a bird calls, one of those nighttime birds that only says one word over and over like it's trying to remember a password it forgot 3 years ago. Then you smell something, warm, charred, savory, like roasted herbs and old wood and wet wool. You follow the scent. What you find is a fire pit, half ringed with smooth black stones, the fire inside it low and flickering like it's been telling the same story all night and has nearly run out of breath. Beside it sits a woman, knees drawn up, a pot bubbling lazily on the flame. She's stirring it with a long wooden ladle and muttering under her breath. You approach. She glances up. Her face is lined with time and patience, and her eyes are sharp in a way that suggests she remembers everything, especially things people hope she doesn't. Sit, she says. You do. She ladles something thick and brown into a small clay bowl and hands it to you without ceremony. It smells like onions, mint, and maybe just a little sheep. You don't ask. I'm the night counter, she says, sipping from her own bowl. I count the ones who can't sleep. You raise an eyebrow. Not people, she clarifies. Sheep. You raise the other eyebrow. Most people think sheep fall asleep the moment the sun goes down, she says, wiping her mouth with her sleeve. Not true. Some don't. Some wander, think, chew too much, get ideas. You glance around, half expecting to see a sheep with reading glasses and a tiny cup of espresso pacing nearby. They come here, she continues eventually, and I listen. You sip the stew. It's surprisingly good, smoky, comforting, and possibly medicinal. You feel your shoulders start to loosen. She looks out over the darkness like she's reading something on the horizon. There was one, she says, used to sit just there, right on that flat stone, every night, same time. Wouldn't lie down, just stared at the moon. I asked why once, he just huffed and sneezed. Never figured it out. You swallow your spoonful slowly. There was another, she says, smiling, that tried to sing. No, really, would make these long, warbling sounds whenever the stars came out. The others hated it, nearly got banished. You ask cautiously, how do you keep track of them all? She reaches behind her and pulls out a bundle of cords, each one with knots tied along its length. Some tight, some loose, some clustered together like gossip. This, she says, holding it up, is my record. Each knot is a sheep who visited. Each space between them is one who left. You run your fingers over the cords. They feel alive, full, a language without words. You know what they never tell you about counting, she asks. You look up. It's not about the numbers, she says. It's about the remembering. Anyone can count sheep, but can you recall them? Can you feel who was here even when they're gone? You think of Gatus, the ram, on the token, of the footprints, of the spirals carved into stone, of the boy counting knuckles, of the tribunal whispering over one ewe too many. This is a world where numbers aren't digits, they're memories. She leans closer. You ever wake up knowing you forgot something? Something small, like a name, or a place, or a scent. That's a lost sheep, not lost in the field, lost in you. You suddenly don't feel like speaking. You nod. She adds another knot to her cord, tying it with practiced fingers. I don't remember all of them, she admits, but I remember enough to know when one is missing. The fire cracks softly like it agrees. You stare into the flames, letting your thoughts blur. You wonder how many of your own thoughts are just wandering sheep, quiet, nervous, looking for a flat stone to sit on under the stars. And then, softly, she begins to hum. A low, circular melody, more breath than sound, the kind of tune that doesn't go anywhere but loops gently back into itself, like a warm breeze. It doesn't ask you to listen, it just lets you. Your eyelids get heavy. The stew has gone lukewarm in your hands, but it doesn't matter. You hear her humming. You feel the knot in the cord. You feel the press of the token in your pocket. The woolly smell in the air. The quiet sounds of the sheep that never sleep. And you realize you might be one of them. The hum follows you as you walk away, a thread in the dark that never quite snaps. You don't remember standing or thanking her or setting your empty bowl down. It's as if your feet took over, following some internal rhythm that has nothing to do with direction and everything to do with the pull of sleep, not sleep, sleep adjacent. That soft, cottony state where the world feels like it's padded with wool and your thoughts start to shed their edges. The ground beneath you changes, less packed earth now, more grainy, softer, almost loamy. You glance down. You're walking through a long, winding path flanked by low circular mounds. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Some large, some small, all covered in the same thin grass that trembles gently in the wind. It takes you longer than it should to realize these are old pens, long abandoned sheep enclosures, collapsed inward from time, disuse, and the occasional dramatic thunderstorm. They're arranged like ripples, reaching outward in careful rings, and in the very center of these rings you see a light. Not fire, not torch, a soft glow, steady and blue like moonlight if moonlight had a secret. You walk toward it. Sitting in the middle under a canopy made of bone-dry reeds is a woman holding a flat circular disc, stone maybe. It pulses faintly as she runs her fingers across its surface. Her hair is tied up in dozens of tight little coils, and she wears a belt of wool cords that jingles softly with every movement. You approach quietly. She speaks before you do. Welcome to the archive. Her voice is smoother than the others, with a strange kind of melody in it, the kind that gets stuck in your head even though you've only heard 2 words. You glance at the disc. She smiles faintly. This, she says, is not a record of numbers. This is a record of dreams. You sit without being asked. She continues to move her fingers across the stone, which glows brighter with each stroke. Swirls begin to appear, not carved but hovering slightly above the surface. They twist like smoke and water. These are the dreams of sheep, she says. Not all of them, of course. Only the ones that stayed long enough to imprint. You open your mouth, close it again. Because yes, okay, of course sheep dream. Why wouldn't they? She chuckles. Most people assume they dream about grass, she says, but it's more complicated than that. Some dream of running, others dream of being wolves. One dreamt of swimming, and once, one dreamt of counting people. You raise an eyebrow. Oh yes, she says, over and over. People walking past in endless lines, each one slightly different. Some wore shoes, some carried scrolls, one had feathers in their beard. You try to imagine what that dream felt like, and your brain politely declines. Dreams, she murmurs, are another form of counting, but they count the uncountable. Longing, memory, maybe regret. She turns the disc toward you. The glowing swirls shift again, forming shapes that might be faces, or maybe clouds, or maybe just thoughts caught halfway into becoming something. Want to see one? She asks. You nod slowly. She places the disc in your lap. It's warm. It vibrates softly like a purring stone. And then the image shifts, sharpens, deepens. You're not watching it. You're in it. A soft field, night, wind, but not the one you just came from. This place is fuzzier. Time slips around you like a stream, and everything smells like mint and fur and rain that hasn't arrived yet. You look down. Hooves. You're a sheep. And you are absolutely certain this is the first time you've ever been one, but weirdly it makes sense. You feel your legs. You feel your ears flick. You feel the grass under your hooves. You blink slowly. Another sheep beside you nudges you. It doesn't speak. It just is. And in the way dreams work, you understand this sheep is your friend, has always been, will always be. You walk together for what feels like hours, but is probably seconds. The sky changes color, shapes rise in the distance, towers, fences, giant floating calms. It doesn't matter. Everything is soft and important. Then suddenly, a sound, counting, a voice, low and slow, calling out numbers. 1, 2, 3. You feel yourself grow heavy, not with fear, but with meaning. Each number feels like a soft rope tying you gently to the ground. You lie down. The other sheep lies beside you. The stars blink. Then, back. You're back in the ring of collapsed pins, the disc still warm in your lap. The woman is watching you with an expression that might be amusement, or knowing, or maybe she's just tired. They say if you dream with a sheep, you'll sleep deeper than you ever have, she says. Some shepherds used to take turns sleeping next to the clever ones. The stat for luck, for rest, for answers. You hand the disc back and your fingers tingle from the weight of it. She smiles. Sleep well, she whispers, and if you see the one who dreams of people, tell him we remember. You stand, somehow lighter than when you arrived. The wind picks up again and the grass rustles like applause. You walk into the darkness with a strange feeling in your chest, like maybe someone has just counted you. The night has grown thick and blue-black like ink left to soak through papyrus. You walk quietly, slower now, as though each step needs to be remembered. There's a certain weightlessness to your movement, like gravity has agreed to let you go for a while on the condition that you don't run. You pass through a narrow corridor of tall reeds, their tips whispering ancient nonsense as they sway. Somewhere nearby, a frog croaks with the enthusiasm of someone who thinks they're headlining a concert. You almost applaud. Then you hear it, a sound so faint it takes a moment to distinguish it from your own breath. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Curious now, you follow the noise. Around a bend in the reeds, you find a man kneeling on a low stone slab. He's surrounded by a halo of broken pottery shards, clay chips, and small stone tools. He doesn't look up as you approach. He's carving something with intense, exaggerated slowness, like time itself is under strict instructions not to rush him. You clear your throat. Shh, he says before you can speak. Don't scare it off. You pause now, very aware of the volume of your own existence. He gestures to the stone in front of him. I'm chasing a pattern, he whispers. It's not running fast, but it hides well. You glance at the slab. At first it looks like chaos. Shallow lines crossing in every direction, some clean, others jagged. But the longer you look, the more it arranges itself. You begin to notice loops, arcs, crossings that don't repeat but almost do. The markings have rhythm. They're not just scratches, they're paths. Sheep trails, he murmurs, still carving, over generations. This one, he traces a line that winds 4 times around itself. This one belonged to a family herd. Same walk every year from field to field. They followed the curve of the river until the river dried. He sits back on his heels, wipes clay dust from his face, but they still walked it even after the water left, like they were waiting for it to come back. You sit beside him. These marks, he says, are stories we don't tell anymore. Everyone wants numbers, ledgers, lists, but a path. He taps the stone. A path is patient. A path remembers. He hands you a smaller tablet, palm-sized, warm, etched with a single elegant swirl. At the end of the swirl is a tiny dot. Lost lamb, he says, followed her mother's trail out of the pen, traced the path all the way to the old shrine. They found her sleeping under a statue of Ninhursag, goddess of mountains and wombs. Nobody taught her. She just walked the memory. You hold the stone. It's heavier than it looks. The swirl is shallow but exact, like it was drawn by someone in love with the act of tracing. Did they keep her? You ask. The man smiles faintly. She became a temple sheep, not for sacrifice, for advice. You pause. Sheep gave advice. He shrugs. She knew how to find water. That was enough. He places another slab in your lap, this one larger with dozens of tiny spirals and loops like the grooves on a vinyl record. You run your fingers across them. The ridges tickle your skin with a whisper of movement, like something forgotten trying to be remembered. This one, he says, is the map of hesitation. You blink. What? Every mark is a place where a sheep paused, where it almost turned, where it considered another path. He leans in. We don't study decisions, we study the almosts. He sits back again, sighing. People think sheep are simple, he mutters, but sheep know when they're being watched. Sheep know when someone's missing. Sheep know when the trail is old. You trace the swirl again slowly. You know, he adds, there was a time we recorded all sheep movements. Every path, every moment. It got too much. What happened? He gives a tired smile. We started dreaming in circles. Some scribes never came out of the loops. You try to imagine getting lost inside a swirl of sheep thoughts. Honestly, not the worst way to go. He stands, joints cracking softly, dusts off his knees. He reaches into a small sack and pulls out a lump of clay, still moist. He presses it into your hands. Start one, he says. Any trail, even a fake one. Someday someone might follow it. You glance down. The clay is warm, slightly sticky, full of potential. You look back up, but he's already moved on, walking into the dark, dragging his stick behind him in a lazy arc that leaves a perfect crescent in the dirt. You sit still for a long time, the clay in your lap, the wind brushing your face. You draw one line, then another, then a third that almost touches the first. You feel your breath slow. Your heart softens, your eyes grow heavy. The path you draw loops gently inward, and that's enough. The clay is still soft in your palm, a little cooler now, shaped into a spiral that has no clear beginning and no obvious end. You run your thumb along the groove you traced, letting the shape lull you. A breeze picks up, not cold but purposeful, like it's trying to remind you there's still more night left to wander through. You rise, dust your hands on your robe, and follow the breeze. It snakes between low stone walls, through rows of dry fig trees, and eventually brings you to a strange, squat building shaped like an overturned bowl. At first it seems abandoned, but then the door creaks open before you can even reach it. A figure steps out, tall, wrapped in layers of dark cloth that rustle like paper. He says nothing, only gestures for you to follow. And of course you do. At this point, there's no real difference between curiosity and sleep. Inside, the dome is lit by a ring of low, flickering lamps placed around the edge, all reflecting off the polished floor. No clay here, no dirt, only smooth black stone, cool underfoot. You step inside and instantly, everything goes quieter. Even your thoughts. He leads you to the center where a large circle is carved into the floor, an inlaid wheel covered in dozens of small numbered slats. Each slat has a symbol carved into it. Stars, hooves, reeds, crescent moons, some you don't recognize. It looks like a board game designed by a prophet and a very sleepy accountant. The man speaks for the first time. This, he says, voice dry and low, is the wheel of rest. You squint. It's for counting. Not exactly, he replies. It's for timing. He steps aside. You notice now there are 4 people seated evenly around the wheel, each with a small pile of pebbles beside them. Their faces are calm. Blank. One of them might be sleeping with his eyes open. The ancients knew. The man continues that sheep don't fall asleep randomly. They drift in patterns. Predictable, cyclical, measured. He gestures toward the wheel. This instrument tracks the stages of a flock's sleep. Every 30 seconds, each shepherd drops a pebble when their sheep begins to drowse. The rhythm tells us what kind of night it will be. You blink. And what kind of night is this? He tilts his head, listening to the faint clinks as each pebble drops. Slow. He says, rest heavy. Some dreams, but no movement. Good for healing, bad for prophecy. One of the seated shepherds shifts slightly and mumbles something that sounds like third quadrant's humming again. The man sighs. Sometimes the wheel sings, not always. You lean closer. In the faint hum of the space, you do hear something. A soft vibration barely there, like the world's quietest lullaby trapped inside a tuning fork. What does it mean when it sings? The man considers. Unfinished thoughts. Someone in the field is trying not to fall asleep, a mind resisting the spiral. The wheel picks it up. You sit down beside the wheel, knees crossed, fingers brushing the edge. What happens if you drop a pebble at the wrong time? You ask. His eyes narrow. They don't let you count again for a month. You nod slowly. Fair. He adds, once a shepherd dropped all his pebbles at once, said he dreamed the whole night in reverse. Started waking, ended with birth. Woke up crying and speaking Sumerian. You make a mental note not to touch the pebbles. One of the shepherds begins humming softly. Not the wheel. A person this time. The sound is wordless but strangely familiar, like something your grandmother might have hummed when stirring soup, or the tune your bones would sing if they could talk about comfort. The man crouches beside you. You know why this matters? He asks, eyes locked on the wheel. You don't answer. He tells you anyway. Because the space between the counts is where the real rest lives. Not in the number, not in the act, but in the pause, the silence. You glance at the wheel again. Clink, clink, clink. The pebbles fall like stars dropping into a still lake. He continues. This is the difference between counting and measuring. Counting ends. Measuring continues. It stretches into dreams. You close your eyes. Not all the way. just enough to blur the world a little. In the back of your mind, you feel it. That rhythm, not yours, theirs. The sheep, the shepherds, the wheel. Clink, pause, clink, breath. Your own thoughts begin to follow. Not like marching soldiers, but like drifting clouds. You think of the path you traced in the clay, of the spiral, of the dreaming sheep, of the one who stared at the moon and didn't blink. And you wonder, just briefly, if anyone is counting you. A soft hand taps your shoulder. You're nodding off, the man says gently. You smile without opening your eyes. Let it happen, he adds. The wheel will keep track, and so it does. You don't remember leaving the wheel of rest. One moment you were sitting beside it, listening to the pebbles fall like distant rain. The next you're walking again, not like someone with a destination, but like a leaf floating wherever the wind decides to carry it. The night has deepened into its final shade. That strange hour where time moves thickly and the air feels padded. Even the stars look sleepy, their light a little fuzzier, a little less urgent. Somewhere nearby a sheep coughs, not dramatically, just enough to remind the world it still exists. You follow a narrow path bordered by half-buried posts. They're marked with faded symbols, triangles, waves, eyes, a squiggle that might mean beware or might mean yogurt. Who can say? Eventually, the path opens onto a wide, flat court of packed earth. In the center stands a tall wooden frame, almost like a loom, but massive. Ropes stretch from its beams in every direction, like a giant spider tried to weave a hammock and got bored halfway through. Beneath it stands a man, shirtless, arms outstretched, slowly winding a long tangled rope around one arm like he's gathering the world's longest thought. He looks up as you approach. His face is lined and sun-darkened, and his beard is divided neatly into 3 braids that seem to obey different laws of physics. You're just in time, he says, not really smiling. The night is nearly sorted. You blink. Sorted, he nods toward the ropes. This is the web of oversight. We map where the sheep go, not physically, spiritually. Their urges, their twitches, their patterns of distraction. You glance around. The ropes don't seem to make any kind of sense. Some are taut, others sag. One is tied into a bow. Another hangs perfectly straight despite having no weight on it. He points to a segment. That one's from the eastern pen, he says. 2 sheep decided to walk in opposite directions for no reason, created tension. Now it hums. You listen, sure enough, a low, vibrating hum like a cello played by the wind. You can tell the health of the flock by the tension in the web, he explains. Too tight, anxiety. Too loose, apathy. But just enough pull, enough give. He tugs gently at one rope. Somewhere distant, you hear the soft jingle of a bell. You narrow your eyes. Are you saying? The web connects to the sheep directly. He shrugs. No, but it responds. It always has. The earliest shepherds would sleep beneath it to hear what the flock couldn't say. You walk slowly around the frame. As you pass, certain ropes vibrate as if reacting to you. One seems to move with your breath. Another sags slightly as you exhale. You reach out lightly and touch one. A small flash of memory hits you. A warm field. The sound of chewing. A younger version of you watching sheep graze under a sky that was impossibly blue. You pull your hand away. The rope stills. The man watches you. You've got echo, he says. Some memory of a flock. Could be real, could be borrowed. You sit on a nearby stone. What's the point of all this? You ask softly. He begins untying a complex knot near the center of the frame. We track the unseen, he says. The feelings that don't show up in the count. The weight of longing. The ripple of restlessness. Sometimes a sheep walks in a circle not because it's lost, but because it's thinking. You watch his fingers deft and practiced as he reweaves the knot into a different shape. Not neater, just truer. And what do you do when the web gets tangled? He smiles just barely. We leave it. Some things aren't meant to be smoothed. They hold memory better when messy. You lean back, your body growing heavier by the moment. The ropes above sway gently by casting shifting shadows across your face. The man reaches into a pouch and pulls out a small tuft of wool. He hands it to you. From the dreamer, he says. You don't ask which dreamer. You already know. You tuck it into your sleeve like a charm. Get some rest, he murmurs. The web's holding steady tonight. You lie back on the stone, your head resting against a folded piece of fabric someone left behind, or maybe left for you. You close your eyes. Above you, the ropes stretch and hum, tensioned by sheep who think too much, by dreams too vivid to fade, by the soft friction of memory against stillness. You listen, and somewhere in the delicate weave of that night-bound web, you feel yourself begin to disappear, quietly, peacefully, like a breath sinking into wool. You drift awake, or maybe you never fully slept, to the soft thump of something dropping nearby, not loud, not urgent, just steady, repeating, like a heartbeat, or like a particularly clumsy sheep trying not to be noticed. Your eyes flutter open. The web is gone. The ropes, the loom, the man with the 3-braided beard, all of it vanished into the quiet folds of the night. In their place is a low, circular structure made of stacked mud bricks and half-rotted timber. Smoke curls lazily from a hole in the ceiling, and the scent it brings is a mix of wet hay, oil, and something faintly minty. You're not sure if that's promising or dangerous. Inside, a woman in thick robes is kneeling beside what looks like a massive scale, the kind merchants might use to weigh grain or debt, only instead of baskets or gold, she's weighing wool. Bundles of it, carefully fluffed, coiled, and oddly tagged with tiny ceramic tablets. She doesn't look up as you approach. "Don't step on the floor markers," she says calmly. You freeze. Look down. The floor is covered in hundreds of tiny black dots painted in looping lines and swirls, like someone gave a squid a brush and a whole lot of free time. You hop over a particularly dense cluster and land beside her, as graceful as someone half asleep and mildly confused can manage. She finally looks at you. Her face is round and lined, her eyes the dull gray of polished stones, and there's a feather, yes, a full feather, stuck behind one ear like a forgotten note. "This is the registry of wool behavior," she announces as though you're already 5 chapters deep. You nod like you were just thinking that exact phrase. She lifts a bundle of wool and places it carefully on one side of the scale. Then, using a carved spoon, she adds what appears to be sleep sand to the other. Each bundle, she explains, records a sheep's sleep quality. Texture reveals rest, weight reflects resistance, static, that's dreams. The more cling, the more confusion. You peer at the wool. It looks like any other wool you've seen. Curly, soft, suspiciously warm. But now it seems to buzz faintly, like it remembers something it hasn't been allowed to say. She nods toward the ceramic tags. "These are the names we give their sleep patterns." You pick one up. It reads, "Kamuduzi, light sleeper, sleeps with one eye open, suspects everyone." Another, an obtuse deep sleeper, doesn't dream, doesn't wake easily, believed to be spiritually anchored to a rock. You try not to laugh, but your breath hitches. She gives you a sideways glance. "This isn't comedy," she says. "This is record keeping and therapy." You clear your throat. "Why tag the wool?" you ask. "Because," she says, placing a new bundle on the scale, "wool remembers things skin forgets, where it itched, where it rested, where it pressed against another body and learned to relax." You feel a prickle along your arm and glance down. You're wearing a wool sleeve. You suddenly wonder what your wool remembers. She weighs the new bundle. The scale tips dramatically as she sinks. "Too restless," she mutters. "Tossed. Probably dreamed of falling. Might have been falling." She plucks the tag from it, breaks it in half, and replaces it with a fresh one. New label, Uzura. Wants to sleep but remembers too much. She hands you the broken piece. "Keep it," she says. "It's yours now." You examine the tag fragment. It's smooth, cool, a whisper of a shape no longer whole. You ask softly, "Do you keep tags for people too?" She pauses for the first time, her hands still. She looks at you, really looks. "We used to," she says. Silence settles between you like 2 birds on a windowsill, not sure if they're supposed to sing or fly away. Finally, she adds, "But people don't like knowing what their sleep says about them. Sheep accept." She gestures toward a tall shelf behind her, rows upon rows of neatly stacked wool, each bundle tagged and indexed by name, temperament, and dream intensity rating. On a scale of 1 to frequently floats midair. She stands, stretches her arms, cracks her neck like a door hinge. "You should lie down," she says. "You're carrying a high cling ratio." You open your mouth to argue, but yawn instead. She guides you to a patch of thick wool padding layered with softer than soft fleece. It smells like lavender and yesterday. You lower yourself into it, limbs giving up with gratitude. She drapes a blanket over you, just enough weight to quiet your thoughts. She whispers, "Don't fight the static. Let it wrap you." You nod, though your eyes are already closed. The wool beneath you hums gently, as if reading your breath, syncing with it, adjusting its curl. You feel warmth, pressure, the faintest pull of gravity turn gentle, and then you sleep like a sheep tagged. Yashtu dreams of floating in warm fog never returns the same way twice. You wake up, or maybe rise into a softer layer of sleep, with the distinct feeling that someone just whispered your name in a language older than vowels. But when you open your eyes, there's only fog. A gentle, silky fog, curling around your body like it's tucking you in all over again. You sit up slowly. The wool padding beneath you is gone. The registry, the woman with the feather, all of it has dissolved into the mist. Your breath leaves your mouth in visible threads, disappearing before you can catch them. And then you see it, a single sheep, standing maybe 10 paces away, perfectly still, perfectly silent. It stares at you, and there's something in its eyes that does not belong to livestock. Something appraising, not unkind, just incredibly unimpressed. You stand. The fog gives way around your feet like shy water. The sheep turns, walks away. You follow, not because you have to, not because you want to, but because in that moment you understand this is the sheep. The one the night has whispered about, the one who dreams of people, the one who counts back. The landscape emerges slowly from the mist, like it's being painted as you move. Ancient terraces, broken columns, a toppled ziggurat half swallowed by ivy and forgetfulness. The sheep leads you through it all. At one point it pauses beside a half-buried statue, a weathered figure with the body of a human and the head of a goat. Its mouth is open, like it's trying to say something but never quite managed it. The sheep snorts. You're not sure if it's reverence or judgment. You keep going. Eventually, the fog lifts enough for you to see where the sheep is taking you. A massive stone slab in the center of a shallow crater. The slab is covered in carvings, thousands of tiny figures etched into its surface. People, animals, moons, ladders, doors, eyes, so many eyes. The sheep stops in front of it and finally turns to look at you fully. Then it does something you will never be able to explain to anyone ever. It raises its front hoof and points at one of the figures, a human figure, small, standing at the base of a tall staircase carved into the stone. The figure has a tiny dot carved over its head, a kind of aura, or maybe a question mark. You step closer. The closer you get, the more the figure resembles, well, you, not just vaguely, specifically, the shape of your shoulders, the tilt of your head, even the curve of your mouth caught mid-thought. You whisper, "What is this?" And the sheep speaks, not with a voice, not with sound, but with knowing. You feel it land in your mind like a pebble in still water. This is where you began to be counted. The sheep moves beside you, gazing down at the stone. You have been walking in the counting spiral longer than you think, it tells you. Every step recorded, every hesitation measured, every dream marked. You kneel beside the slab. Your hands tremble as you run your fingers along the figure. The stone is warm. The sheep continues. The ancient ones knew to remember someone you must give them a number, not for control, for continuity. You ask, not aloud, but from somewhere deeper. Am I still myself? The sheep blinks. You are remembered, you are numbered, you are known. The wind picks up slightly, and the fog begins to coil again, lazily retreating into the folds of the world. The slab glows faintly beneath your hand. Not light, memory. You look at the sheep one last time. It stares back, and then, without a sound, it nods. It turns, walks away. You don't follow, because now you know your place in the spiral. You've been counted, you've been seen, and somewhere in the wool of the world, there's a tag that reads, "You." Dreams of stone figures, breathes between thoughts, returns only when the sky is thinking. You lie back beside your carved self. The stone welcomes you like an old friend. You close your eyes, and the spiral continues. The stone beneath you is warm, still breathing with the last whisper of something sacred. You lie there, the image of yourself carved into the slab just inches away, like a memory that had been waiting patiently for you to notice it. The wind, soft as ever, begins to hum again. Not music, not quite, more like conversation from another room, muffled, familiar, and somehow directed at you. You sit up slowly. The fog is cleared entirely now, ahead revealing the wide open plains once more. The stars above are beginning to dim, not fading but softening, as if they too have grown drowsy from watching so much quiet unfold. You rise and walk, not because you must, but because that's what this night has always asked of you. to move gently through memory. It doesn't take long to find what's waiting next. A long, low structure made of mud brick and faded blue tiles rests ahead, half buried in a fold of the land. It looks like it was built to contain silence, squat, symmetrical, and stubbornly still. You push open the heavy door. It doesn't creak. It sighs. Inside, the air is cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of chalk and burnt rosemary. There are rows of benches, a central aisle, a raised platform at the far end, and behind it all, carved into the back wall, a massive stone tablet taller than a man and covered in fine, flowing script. You're not alone. Sitting cross-legged on the platform is a young girl, maybe 10, surrounded by scrolls and bundles of reed pens. Her fingers are stained dark from ink, and she's muttering to herself as she writes. You step closer. She doesn't look up. Sit anywhere, she says in a voice much older than she looks. Class is always in session, even when there's no one awake. You sit. She finishes a line, carefully dusts the wet ink with fine sand, then glances at you. This is the school of hesitation, she says matter-of-factly. We study what sheep do when they don't know what to do. You raise an eyebrow. Is that common? She snorts. It's constant. You think they all just move in neat little lines like woolly robots? No, most of them stop. Sniff, turn halfway, unturn, stare at nothing. Think. You lean forward. She opens a scroll and shows you a chart. It's covered in circles, arrows, little hoof prints, and odd little symbols that appear to represent moods. A spiraled tail, a sideways blink, a line that might be a sheep lying dramatically on the ground. This one, she points, was named Belti Inu. Famous for freezing halfway through doorways, always halfway, never in, never out. They had to build a second gate. You try not to laugh. You fail. She grins. Hesitation, she continues, is misunderstood. People think it means fear, but sometimes it means calculation. It means sensing something others don't. It means awareness. She unrolls another chart, this one even more chaotic. You see this sheep, named Ezektu, would walk in straight lines, then suddenly veer left every time. No pattern. Everyone thought she was simple. Turns out she was tracing the constellation of Dumuzi's fall across the pen, backwards. You blink, on purpose. She shrugs. Maybe, maybe not. That's what we study. You glance at the giant stone tablet behind her. What's that? She turns, bows her head slightly, then speaks with a reverence rare in children. The wall of paused steps, every hoof mark ever recorded in mid-thought, every drift, every almost turn, every breath held. You walk to it slowly. The marks are not words, not exactly. They are impressions, curved lines, gentle swirls, points of suspension. It's like someone tried to write a language made entirely of maybe. You place your hand against it. It's cool, steady, but deep beneath the surface you feel motion. Tiny shifts, weightless decisions, fleeting possibilities. The girl speaks again from behind you. Sheep don't always know where they're going, but they know when they're supposed to wait. You ask, softly, and people? She doesn't answer for a while, then simply, some forget how, some were never taught. You sit back down. She rolls up her scrolls with care, ties them with wool cords, then leans forward. Do you want to learn? She asks. You nod. She hands you a small reed and a scrap of clay. No instructions, just a quiet smile. You stare at it. You hesitate. You wait, and she nods, approving. Good, she whispers. Lesson 1 complete. The room feels fuller now, not with people, with possibility. You don't carve the clay, not yet. You simply hold it, and that too is part of the story. The clay sits heavy in your hand, not with weight, but with potential. Like a breath not yet exhaled, like a sentence paused just before the important word. You feel its coolness against your palm, and in some quiet way, it feels alive. The girl gathers her scrolls and gives you a nod that somehow feels ceremonial. Don't rush it, she says, stuffing her reed pens into a satchel far too large for her. Clay likes to remember things you didn't mean to say. Then she's gone. Not vanished, just quietly stepped out the door the way moonlight leaves a room when morning arrives. You're alone with the great stone wall, the still air, the half-written clay, and the deep, gentle hush of a place where pausing is part of the curriculum. You stand, your knees softly protesting, and step back into the open. The wind meets you like an old friend, not in a hurry, not with any agenda. It ruffles your robe, brushes your cheeks, tugs slightly at the clay in your hand like it's checking whether you're ready to write something down. You're not yet. You walk. The The sky above is beginning to shift. Not quite morning, but the edges of the dark have started to fray. A deep dark blue thinning towards something less ancient. You climb a small hill. At the top, a stone bench, cracked in the center, moss gathered like old gossip in the corners. You sit. From here, the whole plain rolls out before you. The curved ruins, the web loom gone to sleep, the trail of hoofprints like scribbles in a journal left open too long. Somewhere far away you think you can see the soft glow of the dream archive, or maybe it's just your memory of it. You breathe, and then you hear them. Hoofbeats. Soft, purposeful, and many. You turn. A procession is approaching. Not loud, not rushed, just inevitable. A long line of sheep walking in single file, not driven, not herded. They walk as if each one knows its place, its pace, and the point of it all. At the head of the line is one you recognize. The sheep who dreams of people. He stops a few paces away, looks at you, not urgently, not judgmentally, just checking it. You stand, the clay is still in your hand. The sheep steps forward, then, without drama or flourish, he lies down. Right there on the path, and the line behind him pauses. Waits. No one complains, you understand. You kneel beside him, place the clay gently on the ground. Then, with your finger, not the stylus, you press a slow spiral line into its surface. It's imperfect, lumpy in places, too shallow in others. But it's true. You press your thumb next to it, a print, a mark of you. The sheep exhales loudly like he's been waiting for that exact moment. Then stands. The procession continues. You remain kneeling, hand hovering over the clay, watching them pass. Each one looks at you. Not directly, not for long, just enough to say, yes, you're part of this now. When the last sheep has passed, the wind changes, the plains sigh. You sit on the stone bench again, the clay beside you, drying slowly in the rising warmth of not quite morning. And you understand something now. You are not just counting. You are being carved into the count. Not as a mistake, not as an observer, but as one who paused and left a spiral behind. The clay spiral beside you is dry now, firm to the touch, but still holding the warmth of your thumbprint. A frozen pause, a small proof that you existed here, in the quiet, in the wool soft dark, somewhere between sleep and memory. The sun hasn't yet broken the horizon, but you can feel it waiting. Like it too is standing just off stage, adjusting its robe of gold and dust. You stretch, slow and heavy. There's a comfort in your limbs, the kind that doesn't come from sleep, but from being seen by something that keeps track of you in a language you can't quite speak. You rise. The path ahead is open again, rippling gently with breeze and birdsong still half asleep. And there, further down the slope, you spot something tall, narrow, and shimmering in the faint light. A mirror. Or a wall of polished obsidian. You approach, feet crunching over broken reeds and the odd scattered feather, a few of which look suspiciously familiar, like the kind worn behind the ear of someone who once weighed wool and categorized dreams. As you get closer, you see it clearly. A large vertical slab of black glass standing upright in the middle of nothing. Untouched by dust, untouched by time, no frame, no structure, just there. You stand in front of it, and for a long time, it doesn't show your reflection. Instead, it shows a sheep. Just one, standing where you are now. Staring into the glass, you blink. The image doesn't. The sheep turns its head, and in the glass, you turn yours. A delayed echo, a mirrored hesitation. Then slowly, the sheep begins to morph, not into a human, not into you, but into shapes. Symbols, moments, it becomes a scribbled spiral, a reed pen dipped in silence, a ledger stone with a single line scratched out, a tuft of wool heavy with static, a footprint frozen in mid-turn, a clay tablet, cracked but still cradling a thumbprint. Each one flickers across the surface like a slideshow of things you never realized you were carrying. Then, for the briefest second, the mirror shows you again, but not the current version. A version of you dreaming. Your eyes closed, your mouth just slightly open in the beginning of a breath. Arms slack, not lost, but completely unguarded. It's not a mirror, it's a memory you haven't had yet. Then, like ripples smoothing out in still water, the glass goes black again. You stand there, heart softened, and realize the night hasn't been leading you forward. It's been leading you inward. From behind you hear a new voice. Not a whisper, not quite speech, more like a breeze that's learned to speak gently. Most people come here expecting answers, it says. You turn. There's no one there. Some think they'll see themselves clearly. Others think they'll see who they should be. Still no one. But this mirror, the voice says, almost amused, it only shows what's already been marked, what's already counted, what's already believed in. You look back at the glass. It reflects you now, exactly as you are, still, breathing, and entirely enough. The voice fades. You step closer, and without planning to, you reach up and place your hand gently against the surface. It's warm, not glass warm, memory warm. The mirror doesn't change, it doesn't glow, it doesn't unlock anything. It simply holds your hand there, in its way, like a sheep might press its head to yours when no one else is watching. You let the moment stretch. Then quietly you turn away. You walk back down the slope, not hurried, not heavy. The mirror stays behind you, not watching, just remembering the path has changed. Not dramatically, there's no sudden cliff, no glowing gate, no celestial choir humming in 7/8 time, but something in the rhythm under your feet feels different now. Lighter, surer, like the earth finally recognizes you. You don't notice you're walking uphill until your breath deepens, just slightly. The sky ahead is warming, not yet sunrise, but glowing in that quiet way that suggests it's thinking about it. The horizon is still shy. Up ahead, on the crest of the hill, you see a structure. It looks like a pen at first, a simple sheep enclosure made from knotted ropes, sun-baked posts, and bundles of reeds. But as you approach, you realize this pen isn't for sheep. It's for ideas. Inside the enclosure, half a dozen people sit in scattered positions. Some cross-legged, some lying flat, one person doing something that might be yoga or might just be indecision. None of them speak. They hold objects, scrolls, bowls, feathers, and in one case a very old slipper. At the center, there's a low platform built from uneven stone blocks, and upon it sits a man who is clearly not awake, but not asleep either. His posture is upright, but his face is completely relaxed. His hands rest palm up on his knees. His eyes are closed. His mouth is ever so slightly open in that universally accepted "I'm somewhere else right now" expression. He is unmistakably thinking. A young woman with ink-stained fingers notices you and pats the spot beside her. "This is the pen of unspoken plans," she says softly. "He's been mid-thought for 2 hours." You sit. The ground is warm, soft-packed, and oddly comfortable for being mostly dirt. "Here," she continues, "we bring the things we might do, the ideas we're not sure are ready, the decisions that feel like soup." You nod slowly. That feels familiar. She hands you a flat reed mat and a small charcoal stick. "If you have one," she says, "you can write it." You blink. "An unspoken plan?" She nods. "Even a ridiculous one." You glance down at the mat. The surface is just rough enough to catch the charcoal. You pause. Think. What plan are you carrying that you've never said aloud? What action are you almost ready to take? You begin to write. Not a sentence, a shape, a swirl, a cluster of lines, a few hesitant words, a phrase that doesn't mean anything to anyone but you. And it feels perfect. Not finished, not polished, just allowed. Around you, others are still scribbling, doodling, rearranging small stones into decision diagrams. No one's comparing, no one's instructing. The space is a permission slip, wrapped in wind. You glance again at the man on the platform. His fingers twitch once, then again, then, in a gesture so subtle you might have imagined it, he exhales, opens one eye, and nods. The entire group responds in near silence, a shared exhale, a shiver through the reed fence, a sudden stillness as if the very ground has decided yes. He speaks, at last, not loudly, not urgently, just one sentence. You don't need to act on everything you know, but you do need to know what's still waiting. Then he closes his eyes again. The woman beside you leans in. He's done this for 40 years. Every day he carries one plan to the edge of action, and stops. That's his role. You stare at your mat, your lines, you're unsure, scribbled maybe. You fold the mat and tuck it into your sleeve. No one takes it, no one asks. It is yours to carry or forget or return to later. You stand. The wind catches the edges of your robe and lifts them just enough to make you feel like something is leaving. Maybe hesitation, maybe pressure. At the edge of the pen, there's a small gate. You step through it, and though no one claps, no one says a word. You feel approved. By the earth, by your thoughts, by the sheep who haven't yet acted but are thinking very, very deeply. You walk on. Shh. You descend the hill quietly, your feet pressing into ground that feels more responsive than it has any right to be, like it's memorizing the shape of your step. The folded reed mat inside your sleeve crinkles faintly with each movement. A soft reminder of the plan you didn't quite make, but didn't quite abandon either. Below, the terrain shifts again. The landscape flattens into a wide open basin ringed with low mounds. It's too symmetrical to be natural, as too soft to be ceremonial. And at the center of the basin stands a pillar. Simple, stone, tall enough to be noticed, not tall enough to be intimidating. At its base is a shallow trench filled with small objects, stones, bits of wool, tokens, folded scraps of bark. A man kneels there barefoot, dressed in a tunic the color of ash. He is holding a piece of string between his fingers, slowly threading it through a series of carved wooden beads. Each bead is marked with symbols, some geometric, some clearly letters, one unmistakably a sheep yawning. You approach, careful not to step into the trench. He doesn't look up. This is the column of silent decisions, he says. You kneel beside him. He holds up the string of beads, letting the early morning light catch them. Every decision that doesn't get spoken still lands somewhere, he says. It doesn't vanish, it becomes a bead. You study the strand. Some beads are worn smooth. Others still have sharp edges. One is cracked down the center but held together with a thread of golden resin. They don't all belong to me, he adds. People leave them here. Decisions never made, questions left hanging. You glance at the trench surrounding the column. The tokens there are not discarded. They're placed carefully, deliberately, as if surrendering a decision is a sacred act. He nods toward a bowl nearby. Inside are blank beads and a small stylus. Yours? He asks gently. You take one. It's light, unfinished. You think of something you nearly did, a message you almost sent, a door you stood in front of and didn't knock on, a name you hovered over in your mind but didn't say aloud. You carve into the bead a simple mark, a curve with a line through it. It means something only to you. He takes it, threads it onto the string, and ties a knot, then places the finished strand in a niche at the base of the pillar. You don't feel regret. You feel relief. He speaks again. Some people carry every decision like a debt. But the sheep, they hesitate, they wander, and sometimes they don't decide. And that's okay. He gestures to the pillar. These are not failures. These are rests. You let the idea settle. He hands you another blank bead, one for something you will decide later. You take it, hold it, don't mark it yet. He smiles faintly. That one you carry until it tells you what it wants to be. You rise. A breeze swirls gently through the basin, kicking up a little dust, a little silence. The pillar stands tall, watching over the trench of quiet choices. The beads shimmer slightly in the light, some hum with stored intention, some just sleep. As you leave the basin, the blank bead tucked safely in your pocket, you notice something you hadn't seen before. A path etched faintly into the earth. Not made by feet, made by weight. A groove for many people, leaving quietly, without fanfare, lighter than when they arrived. You step into that path and walk forward. Not finished, not certain, but beautifully unburdened. The path ahead is narrow, yet soft, not overgrown, just politely disinterested in being walked. It doesn't demand your attention. It allows it. Each step feels like a suggestion rather than a command. The earth slightly bending, slightly forgiving, as if it understands that some journeys aren't urgent, just necessary. The blank bead in your pocket taps gently against your side. It doesn't ask to be carved. It just wants to remind you it's still listening. The sky now wears its thinnest veil of stars, and the air is tinged with the scent of damp reeds and something sweet. Not sugar, but memory sweetness. The kind that follows old songs and certain types of silence. Ahead, nestled between two low hills like a secret left out in the open, is a wide circular space. Flat, worn smooth, ringed with tall curved panels made of old wood and braided reed. The kind of space that feels both old and freshly waiting. And in the center, you see them, sheep. Not many, maybe 8. Lying in a loose spiral, not asleep, not restless, just present. Breathing. Their heads rise as you approach, not startled. More like they expected you eventually. A woman sits cross-legged beside them, sketching in the dust with a dried reed stem. Her hair is tied back with lengths of undyed wool, and she hums softly, a tune with no shape, no loop, no conclusion, just movement. She gestures for you to sit beside her. This, she says softly, is the spiral of recollection. You sit. The sheep lie here when they begin to remember things too old to name. She continues. Not dreams, not events, just a long, slow thread of being. You watch them, their chests rise and fall in perfect rhythm. One breath passed to the next like a baton in a quiet relay. You feel your own breath adjusting without thinking. They bring memories into the spiral, she explains, and the spiral holds them, sorts them, softens them. You glance down at the dust where she's been sketching, a wide, slow coil drawn and redrawn with a gentle hand. In the center is a thumbprint, pressed deep, then dusted lightly with crushed sage. Do they remember for themselves, you ask, or for someone else? She smiles. Does it matter? You think about that. One of the sheep, a small one with a single black patch over its eye, rises and steps out of the spiral. It walks to you, stares, you stare back. And then, without fanfare, it lies down again. In your shadow, not touching, just close enough to say, I'm holding something for you. You can pick it up later, or not. You don't cry, but something inside your ribs loosens, like a knot that no longer needs to keep anything together. The woman sets her reed aside. Would you like to leave something in the spiral? You nod. You reach into your sleeve and pull out the folded reed mat from the pen of unspoken plans. The one where you drew a half-thought, a maybe decision, a pause shaped like a symbol. You place it gently at the outermost loop of the spiral. The dust settles around it, then with no wind at all, it begins to sink, not down, inward, into the pattern, into the breath. The sheep don't move, but the spiral remembers. You turn to the woman. What happens to it now? She shrugs, not dismissively, gently. It becomes part of the rhythm. It will surface again. When it's ready, maybe in someone else's dream, maybe in your next thought. You lie back beside the sheep who carries your memory. Above, the first thread of sunrise pulls itself over the edge of the world. Not bold, just present. The spiral breathes, and you breathe with it. Then somewhere far off but getting closer, a new moment begins to turn slowly toward you. You lie there in the dust, beside the sheep, and within the breath of the spiral, and for the first time in what might be the whole night, or your whole life, you don't feel the need to do anything. Not rise, not decide, not even understand. The spiral doesn't demand interpretation, it just continues. You sit up slowly, careful not to disturb the black-patched sheep still curled in your shadow. It opens one eye briefly as if to say, go on, I'll hold the memory a while longer. You nod. Of course it will. Sheep like this don't forget, they just wait. You step out of the spiral. The woman gives you a look that feels like a farewell and a thank you braided together. She doesn't wave, she doesn't ask anything. She just turns back to her reed and begins to draw the spiral again, as if it's always meant to be redrawn. Like the tide, like the breath, like counting. Your feet carry you farther now, across a slope slick with dew, where the grass whispers wet secrets beneath your soles. The sunrise is finally arriving, but it's taking its time, stretching slowly into the sky like someone waking up from the best kind of nap. And then, as you crest the next hill, you see something strange. A gate. Not a wall, not a fence, just the gate, standing completely alone in the field, wooden, arched, and painted a color that might once have been blue. It has no latch, no lock, just two worn posts, a lintel carved with quiet swirls, and a single woolen cord hanging from one side. You walk up to it, instinctively slowing your steps. There is no structure attached to it, nothing to bar you. You could walk around it, you could walk through it, you could ignore it entirely, but you don't. You stop, you face it, and you wait. There's something soft in the air around this gate, a tension that's not danger, but invitation. Then from behind you a voice. Not startling, familiar, like it's always been just a few steps behind, waiting for the right hill. You've crossed every kind of counting tonight, the voice says. Steps, silences, spirals, soft refusals. You turn. It's the shepherd from the very beginning, the one with the tally stick, half asleep beside the sandstone slab. He looks no older, no younger. His eyes are exactly as you remember them, tired and kind and knowing. He taps the lintel of the gate lightly with his stick. This, he says, is the threshold of the unwritten. You raise an eyebrow. The place where no one counts you anymore, he explains, because now you choose what's worth remembering. You glance through the arch. On the other side, morning, full and gold and real. You can smell baking earth, hear distant birds, the kind of world you'd forgotten was waiting. But what's through it? You ask, he smiles. Whatever remains after you've let everything else be counted. You reach into your pocket. The blank bead is still there, still untouched, still waiting to become something. He nods toward it. You could drop it here, he says, or take it with you. No wrong choice, but you have to decide now. You look at the gate, then at the bead, then at the horizon beyond, and slowly, with no ceremony at all, you raise your hand and you do not let go of it. Not yet. You walk forward, through the gate, still carrying the bead, still carrying one unfinished thought, one soft decision, one promise that doesn't rush. The morning receives you like an open palm, and behind you the gate does not close. It never needed to. The morning air is heavier than you expected, not in weight but in meaning, like even the sunlight is remembering something. Your first steps beyond the gate feel slow, deliberate, not because the ground resists you, but because your own breath pauses between movements, as if unsure whether to begin again or simply continue being. You still carry the bead, unmarked, quiet, comfortable now in its own unfinishedness. The fields ahead stretch wide, covered in low, golden grasses, swaying with the rhythm of something older than wind. The path is barely visible, a gentle furrow, like the trail of someone who walked while thinking of something else entirely. You follow it. Eventually you come upon a structure that's less a building and more a suggestion. Half walls, a roof made from branches woven with linen scraps and twine, and in the center, a raised earthen platform with small wooden stools arranged in a lopsided circle. There are people here, but not many. 3, maybe 4, all seated in quiet postures, each with a wool bundle at their feet and a small bowl of water in their lap. No one speaks, no one gestures, but they see you. An older woman, face lined like a map that's been folded too many times, pats the stool next to her. You sit. She places a wool bundle in your lap, no explanation given, and returns her attention to her bowl of water. You look down. The wool is soft but matted in places, not dirty, just used, like it belonged to a sheep who thought too hard. You hold it, unsure of the ritual. The woman glances sideways and says, in a voice so low it feels like the ground is saying it, "This is where we wash what we've kept too long." You blink. Memories. She shakes her head gently. No, not memories. Wait. You look at the bowl of water. It's clear. Still, you watch her dip her fingers into hers, then gently squeeze the wool. The water turns slightly gray, not filthy, just tired. You don't lose anything here, she says. You just lighten it. You nod. You begin. You dip the wool in carefully. You hold it there. Let the water do what water does. Slowly the fibers begin to loosen. The tangles unthread. A little static leaves your chest. Another person across the circle hums softly, a new note, different from the melodies you've heard so far. This one has no lullaby in it. It's not a song to sleep by, but a song for waking. And you understand now. This is not the end of the spiral. This is the first curl of something new. The woman beside you hands you a scrap of cloth. You wrap the damp wool in it, gently, like an apology. You can keep it, she says, or you can leave it. You hold it. The bead is still in your other pocket. You rise. As you leave the circle, you pass a row of wooden pegs in the wall. Some hold bundles of washed wool tied with simple reed string. Others hang empty. You pause. Then, without speaking, you lift the cloth-wrapped wool and hang it up. It stays there, waiting for someone else or no one at all. You step outside. The sun is stronger now. The color of the fields has shifted, not brighter but more honest. The wind is different too. It no longer nudges, it welcomes. You walk, not because there's anything left to chase, not because a voice is calling you, but because movement feels honest now. The path is barely there anymore, just the soft suggestion of direction, marked occasionally by a broken reed, a trampled flower, or the unmistakable arc of a hoofprint that paused, turned, then continued. You still carry the bead, still unmarked, still full of quiet. It no longer weighs you down. Eventually you reach a clearing, nestled between 3 tall acacia trees that lean inward like they're conspiring. In the middle is a low stone table, flat, circular, and carved with slow, looping spirals, worn smooth by time and weather and fingers that came before you. Sitting at the table is a man. He's very old, the kind of old that no longer counts years, just seasons of stillness. He's hunched over a slab of clay, carving gently with a bone stylus. He doesn't look up, but he says, "You're the one with the bead." You pause, then sit across from him. Quietly, he doesn't ask for it, he doesn't reach. Instead, he gestures to the edge of the table where dozens of other beads rest, some carved, some cracked, one that looks like it was bitten. These, he says, are the ones people couldn't finish, or wouldn't, or chose not to. They're not failures, they're seeds. You place your bead beside them, not to give it away, just to let it sit there, to breathe among its kind. The old man nods, as if this matters more than anything you've done all night. Then he says, "Do you know why sheep always return to the same paths?" You shake your head. He smiles. Because they don't fear repetition. They don't demand progress. They walk not to arrive, but to remember. He slides his clay slab toward you. It's not a map, not a message, not a story. It's a single shallow spiral. I carve one each morning, he says. The same shape. Never perfect, never identical, but always honest. It tells me if I'm still listening. You trace the spiral with your finger, and you feel something. Not knowledge, not meaning. Continuity. The old man leans back, closes his eyes. You ask, softly, "How will I know what to do with the bead?" He exhales, a breath like the wind that used to carry messages before people invented paper. "You already do," he says. You look at it once more. It doesn't glow. It doesn't pulse. It just waits, willing, open, yours. You rise from the table. He's already asleep. You step away through the circle of acacia trees, their branches parting without a sound. Behind you, the bead remains on the table, resting among others, not abandoned. Becoming. The sky is fully gold now. The shadows are short, and you are walking again, not to count, not to be counted, but because your steps belong to the spiral now, and the spiral finally walks with you. The morning is wide now, not just bright, expansive. The light doesn't just fall across the land. It settles into it, nestling between blades of grass, behind stones, inside your ribs. You walk through it like someone who's forgotten how to hurry. There's no more fog, no more half-lit rituals, only clarity, and the gentle, unshakable truth that some things grow clearer after they've been left unspoken long enough. The earth changes beneath your feet again. The soil turns redder, the stones more intentional. You begin to notice them, arranged. Tiny stacks. 3 stones here, 2 there. Not tall, not decorative, just present. Markers, quiet ones. You realize you're moving through a kind of trail, not mapped, not explained, but gently witnessed. Ahead, under a sun-dappled canopy of fig trees, you see someone crouched near a ring of stones. It's a young man with sleeves rolled up and dirt on his hands, the sincere kind of dirt, earned, accepted, worn like a friend. He's stacking 2 small stones, his movements careful, not precious. He sees you, smiles, gestures you over. No words yet. You kneel beside him. "This is the path of returning weights," he says softly. "Everywhere someone made a decision and then lived with it, they leave a stone." You look around. There are hundreds, some in pairs, some alone. You ask, "And the number of stones means something?" He shakes his head gently. "It's not how many," he says. "It's how they rest." He points to a pair of stones, one leaning into the other, like a conversation still happening. Some decisions lean, another pair, standing apart but lined up. Some understand from a distance. A third, one large, one impossibly small, stacked perfectly. Some carry more than their share. He hands you 2 stones, smooth, pale, cool to the touch. You don't have to know the meaning, he says, just feel where they belong. You pause, look around. You see a flat patch of dirt between 2 fig roots, shaded, quiet, as if left open just for this. You place the first stone, let it settle into the soil, then the second. Balanced, soft, no struggle. It doesn't look impressive, but it looks right. He nods, doesn't praise, just accepts. "That one," he says, "belongs to those who walked forward without finishing the sentence." You sit with that. Then he adds, "There's no ceremony here, no reward, no lesson." You smile. "I think that's the lesson." He grins. "Exactly." The 2 of you sit in silence for a while, watching the way the sun filters through the fig leaves, dotting the path in golden ellipses. A breeze slips past. Some stones shift slightly, then go still again. Eventually you rise. The man returns to his crouch, begins to restack a pair of stones that had collapsed, not to fix them, just to give them another chance to rest differently. You continue walking. The path curves now. You see no buildings ahead, no structures, just openness. But the air carries something new. A scent, maybe, or a sensation. Something in you leans forward, not from anticipation, from readiness. You don't carry the beat anymore. You don't carry the wool. You don't carry the mat. You don't carry the questions. You walk with only your breath now. And it is enough. And behind you, two stones lean into one another and rest. The path flattens, spreads. No longer a trail, now simply space. Open and wide, as if the world has exhaled fully for the first time in days. You pause on the edge of a broad, sun-washed plain. Nothing moves. No birds, no trees, no sheep. And yet, it is not still. There's a kind of motionless activity here. The feeling you get in a room someone has just left or just entered, depending on the story you tell yourself. You step forward. The ground beneath you is firm, dry, and lightly textured, with ridges like woven fabric. You crouch and run your fingers along it. It's not natural, not random. It's braided. Wool, reeds, dust, pressed together into wide, shallow spirals across the land, faint but deliberate, like someone tried to stitch the earth to its own memory. And in the center of the plain, a small platform, square, stone, low to the ground. Nothing ceremonial about it, but it radiates invitation. You walk to it, sit on its edge, place your palms flat on its surface. The stone is cool, but only at first. Then it warms like it's recognizing you, remembering that it's held this weight before. Across from you, on the far edge of the platform, sits an older woman, barefoot, wrapped in a robe the color of barley. Her eyes are closed, her breathing slow. Without opening them, she speaks. You've been walking a long time. It's not a question, you nod. Have you arrived? Another pause. You consider the question carefully, not out of caution, but out of respect, because the answer matters, and for once, you care what it is. I think, you say slowly. I've circled, and now I'm somewhere familiar, but clearer. She opens her eyes, and they are as bright and sharp as morning water. Good, she says. That means you're ready to forget. You blink. Forget what? She smiles, not gently, precisely. Everything you thought you needed to carry. Out she reaches behind her, pulls out a reed basket. Simple. Empty. She slides it across the platform toward you. Leave it here, she says. Whatever's still hanging on, name it or don't. The basket doesn't need details. Just release. You hesitate, then reach inside yourself, not physically, not metaphorically, somewhere in between. You pull out that question that still echoes faintly, even after all this time. That one face that returns in dreams with no dialogue. That moment you almost asked, almost stayed, almost turned back. That silence you tried to call strength. You place each one into the basket, not forcefully, not with drama, just softly, deliberately. And when you're done, the basket doesn't look heavier, but you feel lighter. The woman nods. You've done enough now. You look up. She's gone, not vanished, just no longer necessary. You remain seated on the stone, eyes closed now, feeling the sunlight settle over your shoulders like a shawl. You're not tired, you're not restless, you are clear. And in that quiet, you realize something. For the first time in the whole long, wool-soft spiral of this journey, you don't need to be counted. You don't need to be known. You don't even need to remember what step you're on. You are here. Exactly enough. Exactly where the spiral wanted you. And beneath your hands, the stone pulses once. Softly, like the final dot at the end of a sentence that doesn't need to continue. Not yet. Ashard, the wind has changed again. Not in direction, not in speed, but in tone. It's speaking now, not in words, but in a low, steady presence that fills the wide plain with a kind of quiet music. You can't hear it, not exactly. You feel it in your skin, behind your eyes, in the rhythm of your breath. You rise from the stone platform. The basket remains behind you, still and settled, holding what no longer needs holding. You don't look back, not out of defiance, but because something inside you has already folded that page, placed it gently into the past. Ahead, the earth slopes downward, not dramatically, just enough to guide you without instruction. You follow it. Your steps are slower now, not tired, just attuned. At the base of the slope, you come to a tree, the only one in sight. Not tall, not ancient, but certain. Its trunk splits early, branching in two directions, one toward the rising sun, the other toward a stand of silver reeds that sway with a rhythm you know but can't name. Beneath the tree is a shallow depression in the ground, padded with moss and worn wool. A place clearly meant for pausing, not resting, not leaving, just pausing. You sit, and then, from behind the tree comes a lamb, small, ungraceful, Still finding its legs, it sees you, freezes. Then, after a moment of deep internal calculation, plops down beside you, with all the awkward confidence of someone who's never doubted their own welcome. You both sit in silence, then, quietly, it begins to chew on a blade of grass it definitely doesn't need. You watch, and realize without surprise that you've been here before. Maybe not with this lamb, maybe not under this tree, but in this state. This space between steps, between decisions, between versions of yourself. The lamb finishes chewing. You reach into your pocket out of habit and find nothing. The bead is gone, not dropped, not lost, just not there. And somehow this feels right. You run your hand through the moss. It's soft, cool. You press your palm into it, feeling the texture like a memory you never formed but always missed. The lamb leans against your arm, not to cuddle, just to exist near you. A gentle affirmation. Above, the two main branches of the tree sway in opposite directions, one catching wind, one cradling stillness. A choice, maybe, but not yet. You let your eyes close, let your shoulders fall, let your breath settle into a rhythm that no longer tries to match anyone else's. No one is watching you now, no one is counting, no one is waiting. And yet, everything feels ready. The sun climbs, the reeds hum, the lamb rests, and so do you. Just for now, just enough. You don't remember drifting into sleep beneath the tree. It happens the way sheep sleep, with one ear still tuned to the world, one half of the mind still grazing softly in a dream. The kind of sleep that isn't about escape, but about integration. You don't vanish from yourself. You become more yourself than you were before you closed your eyes. When you wake, the lamb is gone. Or maybe it was never truly there. Or maybe it still is, in the way grass remembers the shape of what once pressed into it. You rise slowly, no stiffness in your limbs, no fog in your mind. Just a softness, a lightness, as though your bones have been gently rethreaded. The tree above you rustles once, and a single reed leaf drifts down, landing squarely in the center of your palm. It's warm, and it hums, very faintly. You hold it up to your ear and listen. It doesn't speak in words, but in something better. Rhythm, a pulse, a pause, a long, drawn breath. You suddenly understand. It's the pattern of every sheep you've met, every spiral, every breath paused at the edge of decision, every counting that wasn't about numbers at all. You tuck the reed behind your ear, not for style, for memory. The path calls to you again, but not with urgency. Just presence. Like it's walking toward you while you walk toward it. You begin moving. The landscape is shifted. Still soft, but no longer ancient. The ground under your feet feels more like now than before. There are fewer markers, fewer signs. And then, unexpectedly you see it. A gate. Much smaller than the first. Weathered, low, barely higher than your waist. No grand arch, no carvings. Just two posts and a line of smooth stones laid across the threshold. You stand before it. There's no one around to explain its meaning. But you already know, this isn't an entry or an exit. It's a return. The moment where the spiral folds in on itself gently and whispers, "You've seen enough. Now go see again with different eyes." You crouch, run your fingers over the threshold stones. They're smooth, familiar. One of them has a spiral carved into it, not perfect, slightly lopsided. You smile. You remember the first spiral you traced, the clay, the hesitation, how it wasn't beautiful but it was true. And this one, it's yours. The same, but changed. You step through the gate. Nothing shifts, and yet everything is different. The air smells like morning bread. Far off, a bell rings, not loudly. Just once, like someone counting you. You walk into the open field beyond, knowing this place has always been waiting for you to return. Not as a question, not as an echo, but as someone who once counted sheep to fall asleep, and now understands that being counted was never the point. Remembering was. The field beyond the second gate isn't new. That's the first thing you notice. You've walked it before. Or something like it. The curve of the hill, the tilt of the sun, the way the breeze nudges the tall grass like it's checking in, not rushing. It's not deja vu, it's something deeper, gentler, recognition. You walk without thinking now, not absent-minded, just present enough to trust the path beneath your feet. The soles of your feet remember more than your mind could ever catalog. There's no need to hurry, no destination marked in ink. But then, just ahead, you see something small, round, and moving with a kind of purpose that can only come from complete uncertainty. A sheep. alone, wool matted slightly from sleep, one ear tilted at a curious angle, the kind that suggests it's trying to hear something just outside the world. You stop. So does it. You stare at each other for a long moment, not testing, not judging, just watching. And then the sheep walks in a crooked, wandering line toward a shallow depression in the grass. It lies down, not in the center, not neatly, just where it landed. You sit beside it. The grass is warm now, pulsing faintly with the heat of morning and memory. Birds chirp somewhere nearby, 2 notes only, repeated without needing variation. It feels less like a song and more like punctuation. You glance at the sheep. It blinks at you, then lowers its head and exhales. Long, slow, not tired. Released. You lie back and you realize, with a slow smile spreading through your chest, this moment, this breath, this quiet space with no shape or point or productivity, this is the exact thing you once thought you needed to earn. You've counted, you've wandered, you've released, you've remembered. Now, finally, you're here. Not because of anything you did, but because you stopped doing. The sheep beside you twitches once, dreaming. And you surprisingly begin to drift too. You're not falling asleep. Not really. You're just being allowed to soften, to be an uncounted sheep, to be the spiral after it has closed. And as your eyes blur, the light shifts. The wind folds a part of itself into your breath, and you realize there's nothing left to understand, only everything left to feel. The warmth of the sun deepens, spilling across your skin like soft oil, filling the quiet between your bones. You lie in the grass beside the sheep, not asleep, not awake, in that peculiar stillness where time forgets to tick and memory starts to hum. The field breathes, the blades of grass shift gently, each movement part of some unspoken choreography. And you feel it now, beneath everything, a pulse. Not your heartbeat, not the sheep's, but the rhythm of the land itself, a slow, spiraling tempo. You roll onto your side and press your hand into the earth. It's dry, warm, and very much alive. Beneath your palm, the ground seems to answer back, not with words, but with acknowledgement. A kind of whisper. Yes, I remember you. You sit up slowly, the sheep lifts its head, watches you, then, without ceremony, returns to chewing on a reed like nothing monumental has just occurred. In front of you now is something new. A structure, barely a structure, formed from curved wood and woven flags, open on all sides, shaded by a loose canopy of cloth fluttering like the last pages of a story. Inside, a low table, and behind it, a figure you somehow recognize before seeing them clearly. It's the scribe, the same one from early in the night who once muttered over clusters of cartoon sheep and inked tallies into stone. But now his hands are empty. No ledger, no stylus, just stillness. You step inside the shelter. The sheep stays outside. You know it won't follow, and you know that's the point. The scribe gestures to the cushion across from him. You sit. He looks at you. Not expectantly, not curiously, just completely. You've come full spiral, he says. You nod. You remember the parts you forgot. You pause, then nod again. Not all of them, but enough. He reaches beneath the table and produces a small bowl of sand. Fine-grained, pale, familiar. He places it between you. You may write one thing, he says. Only one. You understand. This is not a task. This is a choice. You dip your finger into the sand and begin to draw. No hesitation. A spiral like before. Uneven, soft, human. But this time, instead of closing the line, you lift your finger just before the loop completes. The scribe leans forward. Smiles. Barely. That's it, he murmurs. That's the secret. You tilt your head. What is? Leave room for the next dream to enter. He lifts the bowl, tips it gently. The spiral vanishes. Not lost. Integrated. He stands. You follow, and together you step outside the shelter. The sheep is gone. But you're not sad, not surprised. You know where it went. You know what it left behind, and as you walk into the wide light of late morning, you feel it beneath your ribs. Not a burden, not a memory, but a rhythm. The rhythm of those who are no longer being counted. Because they finally belong. The sky is open now. Fully awake, fully golden, without a trace of the night that shaped you. You walk slowly, not because you're tired, but because you no longer feel the need to reach the end. Every step is enough. The land has flattened, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels quiet in the way a page feels before the first word is written. Ahead, a series of posts dot the plain, weathered, uneven, spaced far apart, each one wrapped at the top with a strip of dyed cloth. Blue, green, ochre, one so faded it might once have been red. There's no sign, no instruction, but instinct tells you this is a place for closure. You reach the first post and find a small bowl nestled at its base. Inside, scraps of wool, some knotted, some loose, one twisted into a perfect coil. A folded reed sits among them, tucked gently between the fibers. You pull it free and read. I almost turned back. I didn't. I left this to remember. You exhale. A soft smile presses at the corners of your mouth. You walk to the next post. Another bowl, this one filled with pebbles. Smooth, warm, someone has scratched initials onto one. Another reads, "This was the weight I was ready to stop calling mine." You continue. Each post is a quiet monument to a moment unfinished but no longer painful. Not memorials, markers of release. Soft declarations that someone made it through, even if they never shouted about it. You come to the final post. At its base, nothing. No offering, no words. Just a smooth slab of clay set into the ground, drying under the midday sun. And carved into it, shallow, fresh, incomplete, a spiral. But this time, the spiral is not alone. Around it, faint shapes are beginning to form. Footprints, tally marks, a feather, a line of wool pressed gently into the edge. This one isn't finished yet, it's waiting. And you know exactly what to do. You kneel, press your hand into the clay. Not to mark, not to carve, just to join. To say, I was here too. To say I am part of this pattern. To say I am done counting and I am still continuing. When you rise, your palm is faintly dusted in dry clay, no mark left behind, but your hand feels lighter, like the spiral held something for you and then gave it back, just a little softer. You don't look back, there's no need. The spiral doesn't disappear when you turn away, it follows, or perhaps it walks ahead now, inviting you to step into the space it left open for you. And so you do. The kind of hush before someone dares to pass the field. The wind has softened to a hush. The kind of hush you find in libraries before the page turns, or in temples before someone dares to speak. You've walked past the last post, through the last field, past memory and ritual and wool and hesitation. Now you are simply walking. And for the first time, you don't wonder where to. You crest one final hill, gentle, grassy, humming quietly beneath your feet, and the land flattens out into something that isn't a place exactly. More like a moment the world forgot to unmake. There's a tree. Of course there is. It's wide, knotted, filled with slow light. Its roots rise from the ground like the ribs of a sleeping beast. At the base of the tree lies a woven mat, unrolled, sunlit, empty. Waiting, you step forward and sit on it. That's all. No ceremony, no voice, no one to witness it. And yet, you are witnessed. By the sky, by the spiral, by the echo of hooves and tally stones and soft-worn reeds that once held dreams like water. You inhale deeply, and as you exhale, the entire journey releases inside you. You remember, the boy who couldn't keep track of sheep, the pit that read footprints like truths, the whispering tribunal, the wool weighed for meaning, the spiral drawn in sand, the mirror that showed who you are when dreaming, the bead you never carved, the lamb that leaned, the gate that didn't close, the platform where forgetting became freedom. Every step wasn't a test, it was a collection, and now sitting beneath this wide, dreaming tree, you feel all of it stretch inside you like a warm, final breath. Your hand moves without thought, it traces a slow, lazy spiral in dust beside you, in the dust beside you. This time the spiral opens outward, no tight loops, no final knot, just release. And that's when it happens, a sound, not heard but felt, like wool brushing against wood, like breath brushing against memory, like a name once whispered, now returned. And you understand you're not meant to stay here. This was never the end. It was the soft threshold before the world wakes again. You lie down, eyes closed, the grass embraces your shape, without needing to keep it. And in the final curl of your breath, you hear it. A single sheep, distant, walking, counting, not numbers, not people, just steps, their steps, ours, together. Now dim the lights, turn on the fan, let soft background hum. You've done more than enough today. Let the spiral continue while you rest, let it walk, while you dream. End of script. Sweet dreams.